Welcome, everyone. My name is Tom Reed. I'm the program manager for the Energy and Manufacturing in Appalachia program. I wanted to welcome you all here today and kick off today's webinar. This is associated with the release of our new report, AI Data Centers, Power and Electrical Infrastructure. And so first and foremost, if you see the chat portion of the page here, I just entered in a link that will take you directly to the report. You put in your contact information, your basic information, just so we can keep track of how many downloads we get, and you can pull that up right now. So I encourage you to do so as Deborah Stein goes through her content today, as she is the author of the report. I think it will be helpful to have the report handy. In addition to that, this is actually the second in a series of 4 reports. So the very first one was an overview of AI data centers that was also created by Deborah Stein, and it is available now as well. We also have a recording of the webinar, and you can download the slides that were associated with that webinar. And that link I'll put up now. And it also has the link to the new report. So if you want to do some additional content diving around our AI data centers, I encourage you to do so there as well. And then while we're talking about that, you can look here on this slide that we have parts 3 and 4 of this series are October 2nd and November 20th. The third part will be on AI data centers, advanced cooling. And then the fourth part will be AI data centers, steel infrastructure. So as you can see here, we're really kind of diving in from a manufacturer's perspective into the 3, what we feel are core and especially needed areas for manufacturers to support them: the power and electrical, the cooling, and the steel infrastructure. And I'm sure that Debbie will go into those in more detail as we're talking today. Just a couple other quick things about the program. You can see right there at the bottom, wemakeithere.org/energy is where you can learn more about our program. We have a $10,000 mini grant that is available to manufacturers to help them enter into energy supply chains, or advance in energy supply chains, or become more energy efficient. You can find all of that at the website, or you're welcome to contact me. And you can see that in addition to our AI data center content, we also will have a report out on natural gas upstream on September 25th and a geothermal report on November 6th. So once these are up, this will bring us to about 10 of these supply chain reports. And again, each of those are meant to help a manufacturer make a go, no-go decision on whether they should invest time and resources looking to become a part of or do more work with a specific energy supply chain. So there's a lot of good information in each one. And so hopefully you will take a look at those that interest you the most. So let's see here. So getting ready to get today's piece underway, I'd just like to again introduce Dr. Deborah Stein. She's the founder of the Science and Technology Policy Academy, which provides independent consulting, policy analysis, program evaluation, freelance writing, teaching, and coaching services. Previously, she served on the Obama White House as executive director of the President's Council on Advisors on Science and Technology, the PCAST, that led the establishment of the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership and creation of Manufacturing USA Institutes. So welcome again, Debbie. You've got some great information to share, and I will turn it over to you. Oh, and one last thing, all questions, please type them into the Q&A portion, and we will address those at the end of the talk today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I'm happy to join you again. This is the second of 4 webinars that I'll be giving over the next couple of months. The goal of this project is to provide support for small and medium-sized manufacturers who are interested in providing components for the potential market opportunity that's presented by AI data centers, both in this region, nationwide, and globally. So first, just so you know where we're focusing on AI data centers. These are specially designed facilities that support the intensive computing and data storage needs for AI applications. Uh, this is, like I said, the second of the series. The next two are on cooling and thermal management and structural steel. I think it's important to think about that third one, cooling and thermal management, because a lot of the energy demand that's related to AI data centers is for the cooling of them. So this again is this is the title page for the actual document. It's about 20 pages or so. Tom put the link into chat for anybody who wants more in-depth information. So I like to always start about putting this in context because I do come from that interface between engineering and public policy. And I'm focusing on the states that are part of this Appalachian project. And you can see there's very like mixed views on it. But I will say from a bipartisan standpoint, AI data centers are definitely supported by both Republican and Democratic governors. You can see the statement from Josh Shapiro here in Pennsylvania, where I'm based in Pittsburgh, and then Patrick Morrisey from West Virginia. All these states are really taking actions to try to attract AI data centers to the region. That doesn't mean they don't face challenges, though. You can see here from this Pennsylvania report where there's some concerns about the energy demands and the impact on the grid. And in West Virginia, for example, there has been a fair amount of public opposition to a data center that they are looking to locate there. And then moving to New York, one interesting thing is because of the energy demand, you'll see activities where governors are trying to think about where that energy is going to come from. So in New York, there's plans for a nuclear plant. Also neighboring Ohio, I think there's also been activities there. Certainly there's things for like small modular reactors and things like that that have been quite active in West Virginia. And then you'll see here again down in Maryland, the governor there has signed a bill about easing the restrictions for backup generators because data centers are things that open, you want, like 365 days a year, 24 hours, 7 days a week. And so backup generators are also a key portion. So overall, you'll see that the rule makers, the people who are at the state level, in particular, but also at the local level, are really sort of catching up as the data centers out there are really starting to multiply. And the main concerns are related to driving up electricity prices because of the increased demand on the grid and also the potential for blackouts. So all that being said, it really is a race from the perspective of the governors to bring in the jobs and other activities that are related to data centers. So today, what we're going to talk about is how the power infrastructure support data centers, 8 things that I think you should know about data centers and energy, talking a bit about the different components, some industry resources, and answer questions. And as Tom mentioned, any questions, just go ahead and put those in the Q&A box and we'll answer them at the end. So first, let's look at how power and electrical infrastructure do it. So this is an actual data center, a Google data center. And you'll see here that data centers are really just kind of like big, giant warehouses. And then lots of times they will have power adjacent to them. Sometimes they're connected to the grid, but sometimes, like in this case, they have wind turbines, natural gas plants, all sorts of different things that might be co-located next to them so that they have a readily available source of energy. And this is an important thing to know is that, we've had data centers really for a very long time, for the decades that we've had web and cloud computing and all these different kinds of things. But the main difference is over here in number 6, where it says a standard 100 megawatt AI data center can power 100,000 homes uh, versus 20,000 for a traditional data center. And so you can see that that's a really big difference, a 5 times difference in terms of thinking about what the difference between AI data centers and more traditional data centers. The other thing to look at is, like the racks that are here. I mentioned cooling and so forth earlier. That is where a lot of that energy comes from. They're more intensive in terms of their computing power. And then because of that, you'll see over there number 4, where you really then need liquid cooling. Um, and you can see that for a single rack, it's about the same as 1,000 home AC units. So where does that energy come from? So today, most of that energy is coming from natural gas, followed by coal. So it's about, just over half of the supply for the data centers. But then you also have non-fossil fuels that are also powering data centers. And you'll see nuclear is playing a big portion of that supply, followed by hydro and wind. So here's the 8 things that I think it's interesting to know about data centers and energy. So the first I sort of have referred to already, in that AI data centers use more energy than traditional, and that impacts the market. So hyperscale data centers, that's the light blue line. Those are what we're talking about when it comes to AI data centers. And you can see just by looking at this chart how that demand has increased from, say, 2014 to 2024, in terms of how much energy consumption and what that impact that has on the grid. But what it also means is that it influences the market. So for those of you who are in the manufacturing industry, who are looking at selling products to AI data centers, probably manufacturing products for them, you can see about half the market is projected to come from these larger data centers. And oftentimes when on the economic development side, when they talk about job creation, the job creation for the actual operation of data centers is pretty low, but there is definitely potential for job creation if you look at the manufacturer supplying those. If there's something that encourages the data centers to use parts that are from the region itself. So here are some of the big players. So when we're talking about energy in this case, in terms of like from a manufacturing perspective, we're talking about manufacturing parts for both the sources of energy, which are the things at the top, like renewables, nuclear, and natural gas, but also batteries. Backup systems are also a big part of this. And then you have the electrical equipment that's actually used, all the different things that are that actually make that provide transition electricity from the data to from the racks, from the energy sources. Then there's also energy management backup power, because there's a lot of emphasis on energy efficiency and trying to make these things operate with as least little power as possible. And then, of course, you have the power providers. So there's a big market for all of these different aspects that are part of the energy AI data center energy supply and electrical equipment system. So this is where things, eventually what we would hope to happen is that the energy sources would transition from some of these fossil fuels to renewables. And you can sort of see that in this chart, in this projection, that the amount of energy on a global basis in China and the United States, that green area renewables is going to increase. You also see there a big increase in nuclear. So but natural gas, which is orange, is also expected to play a big role in terms of the overall transition as we move from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources and nuclear. So counterbalancing that, I should say most of these Silicon Valley type firms like Amazon and Google and things like that that run the data center, they all have sustainability policies. But we also have the Trump administration, and it has been advocating for coal as opposed to renewables. I'm not really sure in reality how much influence Trump has. He's giving some incentives to executive orders for coal to power the AI data centers. But in the end, it's really the companies that decide where they're going to get their power from. And most of them do have sustainability policies that would favor new renewables. Both, though, are supportive of nuclear. So both the Silicon Valley organizations as well as the Trump administration are pro-nuclear power, and I would expect that to be where a lot of the demand will be. I should say that, when we're talking nuclear these days, it's not those necessarily those big giant nuclear plants, like 3 Mile Island that we've grown up with, but more these small modular reactors. But that being said, we're still also in a transition stage for nuclear as a whole to these new small modular reactors in the United States. There are some in other countries, like in China. So energy efficiency, I think, is also important to mention. So this is what we're hoping for the data center for the future, which is that it sort of be clean, where we have low carbon, local generation. Um, and then also we have this kind of circular economy where we use waste heat, and also, less water that we're hoping for. But then down here, you'll see it's really important to have efficient cooling. And that's why I mentioned that cooling is a really important part of this as we go from air cooling to liquid cooling. And I will talk about that a lot more in the next webinar, but you should be aware that's a really big factor in this. Another thing is the management of energy itself, like optimizing the system in terms of how much energy is used. So software, automation, and even AI itself can improve how the management of energy is managed within the data center. So the big factor in terms of like location is the transmission. So particularly in the era that we are in, which is called PJM, the grid that we're in, there is really big delays, and you can see this is in months, right? So it can be like right now up to 5 years just to get connected to the grid. And that is one of the biggest factors in thinking about where AI data centers go. It's bad enough that the governor of Pennsylvania has even thought about say, hey, let's take Pennsylvania out of the PJM grid because of the challenges in getting approval from them for connections to the grid. So that is a really big factor, and that's part of what's leading to some of these co-location activities. Also locations on former coal plant sites, coal power plants, things of that nature, because they have some of those interconnections there already. And what you're doing is repurposing them for a data center. And maybe switching the coal plant to, say, natural gas plant or to renewables. And you'll see here that it's that, again, energy being a big factor. When you look at this chart, which is from Kearney about location attractiveness, that the biggest factor in determining where a data center will go is energy. It is that power infrastructure, the grid reliability, the power cost, and sustainability. So again, because of the sustainability policies of a lot of these companies, that's a big factor in terms of where it is that they locate, is the ability to locate sustainable energy sources. So AI data centers have traditionally been primarily in Northern Virginia and Silicon Valley, up in the Northwest. But because these areas are getting maxed out in terms of how much power they can supply because of these energy demands, now these big companies are looking at our region, which is Appalachia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, New York, the sort of the more remote areas. And a lot of these remote areas, because they came from, that former coal background, steel background, they have brownfields, and some of those brownfields are good locations for AI data centers. One of the projects I'm working on in West Virginia is looking at former mine lands and seeing if some of those can also be host to data centers in West Virginia. So that being said, the public has sort of mixed feelings about AI data centers. They're concerned about energy consumption and electricity price impact. So overall, the vast majority of Americans do support AI data center development. They just aren't sure if they want it near them. And that is, again, because of concerns about a possible spike in electrical price increases. And so it falls then to the state governments to then decide, okay, how are we going to bring in AI data centers while at the same time not increasing the price of electricity for individual residents. So now this is when I'll get into the components. Um, so you'll see here that this is an example of the interior of an AI data center and the type of electrical equipment that's needed. So you see here, there's like network connectivity, there's uninterrupted power supplies, there are the server racks, liquid cooling, the power distribution units, air conditioning, chillers, battery storage, switchgear, transformers. And as you can imagine, if you think of all the little widgets that make up all of these different things, it's a lot of parts. So what you'll see here is this is an example of all the different little elements that are part of of how all these elements are connected together, in terms of the consumption and where they're located. So in the report, this is just the first page of like about 4 or 5 pages of the different components that if you're a manufacturer, you can consider supplying to data centers and to those who manufacture data centers. So for each of those, this is just an alphabetical list. So we've included the component, the NACS numbers, how the relationship between that component and the data center and how it's used. So for example, these automatic transfer switches, the goal for them is to ensure a seamless transition to backup power during an outage. And of course, with data centers, you want no outages. So in terms of industry resources, the major organizations, like overall is the Data Center Coalition that represents the data centers themselves. And then there's a lot that are energy related. So locally, we have organizations like the Marcellus Shale Coalition, nationally, the Energy Infrastructure Council, and then we have ones that are more focused on the individual parts, like the electrical distributors, Electrical Manufacturers Association. And then the Green Grid is an organization that's trying to focus on, making AI data centers more green. There's a DOE program that we believe is still active, which is on manufacturing energy supply chains, and that is a possible place where you could get funding if you're interested in moving into this area. So finally, the things I'd like you to remember is that AI data centers are a major emerging market for small and medium-sized energy and electrical equipment manufacturers. AI company sustainability policies will likely drive new equipment purchases, though the Trump administration fossil fuel policies may counteract some of that. And because this is a very fast moving area, this is not something where you want to like wait and see. It's definitely more of a sprint, just like it is for the states in terms of capturing the data centers to get location in the different states. From a manufacturing standpoint, you also want to really look at these parts, see what's needed, and see if it's something where either your existing components or new components that you can maybe retool your systems to provide could supply these AI data centers. And with that, I'm open for questions. Oh, and here's information about the Academy. I forgot that part.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. And I'd encourage people, if you have other questions, to submit those in the Q&A pod. Debbie, we talked about this earlier. So a question about job creation. How many manufacturing jobs would a regional data center provide after it's been constructed, or do most of the jobs come during the construction process?
Okay. So the biggest boost is right at the beginning. That's during the construction phase. So you can see that um, there's a lot involved with the data center. Now, sometimes they're actually built like on site, but a lot of times they're kind of more built off site and just kind of like modular housing. There's like modular data centers where they're then brought to the location and then they are built. But so there's, to me, there's like three parts from, again, from an economic development standpoint. So the first part is that construction phase that will last, for probably a couple of years. Just because there's a lots of bits and pieces, you got to get the site prepared, building, install equipment, testing, all these things. That's going to take a couple of years. So that's the biggest part of it. From a manufacturing standpoint, okay, you're in that phase, kind of like the construction phase. So you're not the direct construction jobs, but you're supplying the parts that are used during that construction phase. So that again is a near-term job creation activity, right? So it's not like immediately, but it is, but all the plans and so forth are going to be in place. The last phase is the actual operation of the data center. So that can be very low. And I'm talking like really low. Like for some data centers, it might just be a handful of technicians, like 10, 20 people. I've seen some as maybe high as 100, maybe 200, but still, we're not talking thousands of jobs. Now, on the bright side, these are long-term jobs, right? So these are things that will last for a while. They're good, well-paying jobs, great benefits, all these other things. But that's really what we're talking about when it comes to jobs.
Okay, well, thank you. This question is somebody asked about a copy of the report that you mentioned, and we did drop it in the chat box, and we'll drop that in here again for you. You can go and download that, as well as the first report that Debbie did on the overview, and we'll have information to log in on the other ones as well, the upcoming webinars. So um, another question is, and there's so much information coming out, and if you have a tip or trick or maybe a couple sites that you found other than the old Google alerts, but if you have a good resource out there that people can get some updated information on the state of the industry.
Um, yeah, I think that the challenge, like I said, since I've now written 4 of these reports, all 4 reports are done, even though I haven't done presentations on them yet. I will tell you that to me at least, that the best place is actually AI itself. Like when you look at the different Gen AI, generative AI tools, like ChatGPT and Perplexity. I have actually come to rely on those to kind of do a suite for me that's a more specialized suite, because the challenge is that if you just, like, one of my favorite places to go is Google News, right? So I'll go to Google News, I type in AI data centers, but there's so much coming out that you really have to focus it on your particular needs. So if I'm like, for example, let's just take something like liquid cooling. Like if that you think, oh, I might want to provide parts for liquid cooling or whatever it is, then you're better off doing, I would say a Google News alert that is focused on, like AI data centers, liquid cooling. I think I would do that first, where you get automatic news items. But maybe you only care about ones that are in Pennsylvania. Sorry to add, and Pennsylvania is a search term, right? So, my favorite of the tools right now is Perplexity, and the reason why I like Perplexity the most is because it provides the original data sources. So it doesn't just, if I ask, okay, give me a list of the latest news on whatever it is, then it will actually let me link to the report and then check that information that's there. So those are the 2 places I would say. I have not yet found any one newsletter, even though I subscribe to innumerable newsletters.
Right.
I in the end find that Google News is best.
Okay, great. And I would agree on the Perplexity point. I like the links as well. So yeah, you can go get the original because we know sometimes you have trust but verify, right?
Yeah, and I really find also that, like an article might summarize it, but when it comes to the nuances, you really have to go to the original reports, because a lot of what's out there is, again, this is kind of the good and bad of AI. It's an AI generated summary of the report, and that it doesn't necessarily provide or answer the questions that you might have. And that's why it's better to say, okay, oh, let me know that the report is out or analysis or new or whatever the news is, and then go to the original source.